Hey everyone, it's Steven. Today I have the 2022 Hyundai Elantra N. This is the high-performance variant of the wildly popular compact sedan from Hyundai. Hyundai fully redesigned the Elantra in 2021, but didn't come out with the full N trim until 2022, and I've got this one here in this gorgeous performance blue color. The 2022 Elantra N MSRP is for about $32,000. The one I have here comes to about $35,000 with the $400 performance blue option and also the $1,500 automatic transmission option. You actually have the option of getting a 6-speed manual for no cost or an 8-speed dual clutch automatic transmission like this one has for about $1,500. In addition, shipping and freight also costs about $1,000, giving you the as-tested price of about $35,000 for this one, which is honestly, I think, a great deal for this. As I'll talk about later in my overall thoughts, this car is a huge value and sounds amazing, as you guys will also hear later, for the cost. This competes with things like the Jetta GLI, the Subaru WRX, which also just got fully redesigned in 2022. I've heard great things about that vehicle, and the new Civic Si/Type R. Oh, the new GR Corolla as well. I think that one's going to be a really interesting competitor because that has almost the exact same horsepower figures. The one here has 276 horsepower and 289 pound-feet of torque. With overboost, you can actually get 10 more horsepower and get that to about 286 horsepower. So that is a lot of power in such a small and light vehicle like this. This power all comes out of a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, and it is mated to an 8-speed automatic transmission, like I mentioned before, with front-wheel drive only available. So if you want an all-wheel drive option, this is not going to be a good car for you. This engine gets you fuel economy numbers of 20 city, 30 highway for a combined total of about 23 miles per gallon, which is a little bit below average in the class. Obviously, if you get the non-N Elantra, you will get slightly higher figures that compare with the rest of the compact sedan class. One of the ways the Elantra sticks out in this very crowded segment is with this bold and aggressive styling. For better or for worse, it's pretty polarizing. I think some people love it, some people hate it. Personally, for me, I love this. I think you can see these headlights from a mile away, and Hyundai did such a great job with this redesign. I have so many friends who have complimented the looks of this car without realizing that it's truly a very affordable car for most people, right? Like this car, the base Elantra MSRP is for about like $25,000. Very affordable. Obviously, the N model here gives it a lot more, tricked out stuff. So the front here, you've got this very black cladded aggressive grille here. I actually have some mixed thoughts about this. In general, I think it looks good, but I do not like the plastic on these sides. I think the plastic on the side fenders there doesn't look so good, but you do have some more functional air vents. Some are non-functional, but some are functional. And you've got the N badge at the front as well. I do think one of the cool things is this lower lip here that comes with this nice red trim around the entire vehicle. I think it looks really aggressive and definitely separates this from the classic normal Elantras that you probably see everywhere. Another thing Hyundai did really well here is styling the headlights of this vehicle. I love these LED headlights. They look iconic, like I mentioned before. This, the Sonata, the new Tucson, I just think Hyundai is doing such a cool job. I don't know how well these are going to hold up long term, honestly. I think a lot of people are saying that in 10 years, these are not going to look good anymore, but I love it right now, and I feel like it's very modern. You do also have LED turn signals and everything like that. It's kind of what you expect in a more modern vehicle. Going along the side profile of this vehicle, I think the 19-inch alloy wheels are a huge reason why I would love to get this car as well. I think they look phenomenal for, especially at again, this price range, the $35,000 price mark. It looks super cool. It looks much more interesting than the sea of, compact sedans out there. You've got red brake calipers that have the N logo, and you've also got the N logo in the middle of the wheels as well. You can kind of see the body lines very aggressive on the side. I think, the Hyundai Elantra is all about these different angles and like shapes, I feel. I think it looks really cool, personally. I think, there's so many different body lines on this vehicle on the side, and I think it's a little overwhelming at first, but I think they do a really good job making it look modern. I think that's what the entire modern look is about these days. And then going to the rear, the part that stands out is going to be the huge wing here. This thing looks awesome. I think, the WRX doesn't do this. The Civic Si has a much smaller spoiler. This is a full wing, which is pretty cool. I think a lot of people think that some of the parts of this vehicle are aftermarket, but they aren't. This entire vehicle is completely stock. This awesome wing is just, I don't know, it looks really cool. Definitely separates this from some of the other performance compact sedans out there. At the back of here, you've got the pretty typical Elantra look. You've got the N logo again. We have tons of N logos throughout the entire car, which is awesome. Definitely want you to know that you have more of a special car than just the normal Elantra. And you've got this nice rear diffuser back here as well. You've only got 2 tailpipes. They are very large, as you can see, though. They're not your typical tiny little tailpipes. I think a quad exhaust, personally, that's always my votes, but I can definitely understand how on smaller vehicles like this it might not look as good. So let's take a look at how this exhaust sounds. That sounds incredible, right? The first time I heard this car's exhaust note, it really blew me away. The crackles and pops, I mean, they're there and very loud. This is probably one of the loudest vehicles I've driven. Very comparable to things like the Toyota Supra, which is so cool. I mean, you would expect that from a more expensive vehicle like a fancy BMW, but this is just a $35,000 compact sedan. Pretty crazy, right? Going into the trunk here, again, the reason you get this over something like the Miata or the Supra is for trunk space. You've got 14.2 cubic feet of cargo space, so you do have some space. Notice though that you have these red braces here for structural support, so you can't actually put in certain things because those will get in the way. You can't really take those out. Also, you'll notice on this side that you have a little tab to pull to lower the back seats. They only lower all together, so no 60-40 split or anything like that. It's either all or nothing. All right, now let's go into the interior of the 2022 Hyundai Elantra N here in this gorgeous performance blue paint. Before we go in, I wanted to show you guys the key fob. Pretty typical Hyundai key fob, but you've got the N logo on it, so a nice twist there. And I love this paint, it looks gorgeous. Okay, so going inside here. All right, so initial impressions are that the interior is both cool and also a little underwhelming. So let me start the vehicle there. One of the biggest things that you'll notice, and immediately, at least I did, is that you don't have power seat controls. So I haven't had to move myself manually in quite a while in these vehicles, but especially newer ones these days. But this one still has manual seat controls, which, I mean, even for the driver and the front passenger, of course. Okay, so the steering wheel, kind of the first star of attention here. Very cool steering wheel. I love these N buttons. Definitely enhances the feeling that you're driving a sporty car. You've got some standard aluminum paddle shifters there as well. And this N button here goes through the different drive modes. You can see that. And this N button is your individual drive mode that you can set. Cool little animation going on there, right? And then, of course, my favorite button in the entire vehicle here is this NGS button, N Grin Shift. This one's basically the same thing as a power boost. It's a 20-second power boost you can hit. I'll kind of show you guys here what it looks like, but it's a pretty cool thing. Kind of gets your revs up really high and makes your car sound pretty cool. Really meant for, I guess, showing off or passing people. In front of the steering wheel, you've got your classic 10.25-inch digital gauge cluster. This one comes standard, as well as this 10.25 infotainment system as well. That is the touchscreen. So kind of nice. It's a little oriented towards the driver, kind of a very common thing people are doing these days. And then on the left, you might be wondering, what in the world is this thing? Basically, from what I've gathered from different reviews and stuff like that, this is just a placeholder of something that might come in future years, of, you know, different things they could put here. So as of right now, literally non-functional. Just more black gloss plastic to clean, essentially. So kind of moving to the door panels, one thing I really like about these are the speaker caps. I love the speaker caps there and the Bose ones down there as well. They look really neat. And I love this Alcantara with this contrast little these little holes here as well. These look really neat and it feels good and it makes it seem pretty high quality. Otherwise, as you would expect, you've got a lot of plastic here, some soft touch and some hard plastics, and you got some storage here as well as some cup holders there. You do have the N door sill. It does not illuminate at night though, unfortunately. I really wish it did. I'll show you guys at night though. This ambient lighting in here looks incredible. You can't see it in the daytime here, but at nighttime I do love the ambient lighting. Very happy they brought it over to the Elantra as well. In my Sonata review that I'll kind of link you guys here, I love the ambient lighting in the limited trim. I thought it was awesome. So another thing that I think a lot of people will notice very quickly are these N seats. So probably one of the most important things in this vehicle, these N bucket seats are actually more comfortable than I expected them to be. Some people kind of complain that they're pretty stiff, and they are definitely not. They're not super padded in the back. Like it's definitely stiff. If someone is behind you and they're kneeing you, you can definitely feel that. But you know, I think the headrest is comfortable. This looks really nice at night. The N does illuminate, super cool. I'll show you guys that right here. I love that. It looks gorgeous. I also love the contrast blue stitching here. This matches your exterior color, so I love that performance blue. Really, really worth the $400 that it costs. You've got Alcantara inserts in the middle of the seats and leather bolsters all around, but the Alcantara looks and feels really good. Again, you've got that traditional 3-stripe made of dots thing. I don't really know how to describe it, but it looks really cool, and I love that you know, cohesiveness throughout the entire cabin. Really makes this car feel a lot more premium than the $35,000 price tag would suggest. But yeah, otherwise, the car, I think the cabin, Hyundai has just done such a great job making the car feel luxurious, but cheap. You know, like there are very cheap materials in here. You know, like some of these buttons, some of these switch knobs are very clearly very cheap in materials, but Hyundai has done a great job making you feel like it's an expensive cabin with the use of the Alcantara microfiber suede, and I mean, just so many cool touches. I love this performance blue here again on the leather shift knob. It looks incredible. You've got a wireless charging pad here, 2 USB-C ports, 2 USB-A ports, no USB-C yet in this vehicle. I expect that to be coming pretty soon. And you've got physical climate controls. Oh, one thing I really like about the floor mats, the Elantra N logo. I definitely want you to know that this is an N. They are not shy about letting you know that. To wrap up in the front seats here, you've got these digital gauge clusters like I mentioned before. This one is not the most configurable thing in the world. You can kind of change what the middle shows. I kind of just like keeping it on the digital speedometer. But you know, things are generally pretty easy to use here. You've got adaptive cruise control. It actually does have lane trace assist as well, so works pretty well. I think I really like the way Hyundai has integrated it into the steering wheel. Very easy to use, and again, the contrast stitching on the steering wheel. I love it. These things are sometimes things that in other luxury cars cost way more than they should. Porsche. So going into the screen here, this feels almost smartphone-like. This is hard because I'm using my wrong dominant hand. But yeah, like you can program your N mode here, and things are just generally, ooh, look at those cool animations, you know? Like, you've got a lot of different things. This is the setup of the vehicle. You can change your sound settings, things like that. This does come with the Bose sound system, like I showed you guys before. But otherwise, like, everything here is easy to use. Like, I really, really like the way that Hyundai has, you know, programmed their infotainment system. I think the software is one of the best ones in the industry, in the, you know, non-luxury market, I think, but this goes toe-to-toe with things like BMW, I think. So I mean, they do a really great job. The Genesis looks very similar to this as well, obviously being the luxury big brother for this. I'll show you guys the GV70 review I have. This infotainment system is very similar, very fast, very quick, easy to use. I do think, you know, a little too many buttons in my opinion, but I do love this little screensaver you can go to here. And overall, it's a really great infotainment system. All right, you can kind of hear that low growl from the exhaust. I love the sound of it. Won't get tired of that anytime soon. Going into the rear seats here, they are a little cramped. You know, initial impression I'll show you guys. It's not, I wouldn't say it's the biggest thing, but again, this is a compact sedan. I wouldn't expect it to be too big. Headroom, I think, is the biggest thing. Legroom was really fine for me, honestly. Like, you can kind of see right here, like, I have ample legroom, honestly, with my normal seating position. So the back is not the most luxurious thing, but you do have that micro suede Alcantara again, which is nice. You've got those seat inserts, and it's leather. You know, what else can you ask for in a vehicle at this price, honestly? You do have a very small sunroof. The interesting thing is that this sunroof only comes in the automatic. If you get the manual transmission, you actually can't get the sunroof, which is super weird. But yeah, otherwise, you know, I think the door panels are fine. You don't get the super nice looking Bose ones, but you do have a little bit of that here as well. And I mean, I like it. I think from the back here, like, I would be comfortable for a bit. You know, headroom is a little tight if you're taller, maybe more than like 5'10" or so, but otherwise these rear seats are pretty nicely appointed. All right, so now let's talk about how the 2022 Hyundai Elantra N is like to drive. So a few things first, this car is amazingly fun for the price, right? For the $35,000 mark, this car gives you so much fun. Like, honestly, I have way more fun in this car than I had in a lot of other more luxurious cars in like the $60,000 to $70,000 range. So I mean, like, if you want the practicality of an actual sedan that has 4 doors and a decent amount of cargo space, like, but you still kind of want that fun factor of something like a Miata, like, this car gets you close to that. I mean, this drives way better than the Jetta GLI, and I haven't driven the new Civic Si, but I imagine this is still a lot more fun than that given the horsepower figures. Definitely not going to be as crazy as the Type R, but I mean, the engine sound, like, I don't know if you guys can hear it that well in the back there. This is in normal mode. I'm not even in sport, so I can put on sport mode here in a moment. Let's do it right here. So this is sport. And I think what you guys probably can hear actually is going to be that pumped-in engine audio. So that is something that is a little interesting with this vehicle that I think some true sport purists won't really enjoy, is that pumped-in engine sound. They do this in the Genesis as well, like I mentioned I think earlier as well, but like it's kind of a weird gimmick. But I mean, to be fair, when I'm driving this car, you can still hear the pops and crackles and stuff like that. So like this car, yeah, like when I'm downshifting like that, like you can hear it. It sounds good. And that's just in sport mode. So sport mode is, it's kind of an interesting thing, right? The Elantra N has the actual N mode, which is what I'm in now, makes the engine a little louder, really firms up the suspension. It changes the electronic stability control to this sport mode essentially, and makes things really, really crazy. And I mean, it sounds great. It definitely makes it very jerky in terms of downshifting and upshifting. So I wouldn't recommend doing it in city streets like here in Seattle, trying to get around and have these stoplights everywhere. It's going to be pretty tough to actually have fun with it. But overall, the driving experience is really just pure joy. The car handles exactly like you would expect. It attracts stares, right? This performance blue color is phenomenal for $400. Let's see if you can hear that. Yeah, you hear a little bit of the pops there. Yeah, it just sounds great. It's such a cool car. And I just love the way it looks. I think Hyundai, I mean, I cannot stop oozing about how great Hyundai has done with their new vehicles, right? The new Sonata N line. I can't believe that Hyundai is making these, yeah, the transmission jerking a lot right now. But I just can't believe Hyundai is making these true sporty, like, you know, cars that people actually enjoy. Like, sport enthusiasts will enjoy driving this vehicle, and it goes toe-to-toe with things like the GTI. Like, it's so shocking that Hyundai is doing this, and I love it, and I'm so happy that they're able to kind of achieve the success they have with these vehicles, because they truly are fantastic performance vehicles. Now, ride quality suffers a little bit for sure. Like, this car is still, at the end of the day, going to be a pretty basic, you know, non-luxury car, right? Like, you would never expect this to be a luxury car. You do have some cool touches, like you've got the leather seats, the Alcantara, the light-up things, you know, all those cool things that make you feel like you're in a more expensive car, which Hyundai does really well. But I think ultimately, it's so loud. That's my biggest complaint with this vehicle, is how loud the exterior is. The road noise from these tires, the wind noise, it's deafening when you're on the freeway. And I think, you know, obviously if you're having fun and you're kind of, you know, weaving in and out and stuff like that, like, you can have your fun and it'll be fine. You know, like, if you're not concerned about the comfort, but having a conversation on the freeway can be pretty tough, especially if you're not in normal mode. So essentially, if you're in sport mode or N mode, for example, like when they really firm up the suspension, this chassis is just not conducive to a quiet conversation, let's say that. Okay, let's give it a few revs here. Yeah, I mean, you can already hear how deafening the outside is, I feel. I'm going to turn N mode off there, but it sounds good. Acceleration in this car is great. 0 to 60 in about 5 seconds flat is impressive for a vehicle at this price range. I think that's what ultimately makes this vehicle so convincing, is that it is affordable. Like, this vehicle is, I mean, to be fair, right now in this climate, I don't know if you'll be able to actually find one at $35,000, but I mean, just given the price tag of this car, it is such a good performing and handling vehicle that I think a lot of people are really going to enjoy. I have to give such a shout out to that amazing performance tracking, infotainment system, essentially. All those settings that you can configure to make this car feel actually trackable is convincing for a vehicle like this. Like, I mean, I expect the GR Corolla is definitely going to be able to compete with that in that aspect, but I still think the look of this looks better. It looks more modern. These huge screens, the digital gauge cluster, all that stuff looks a lot more modern than I think what Toyota puts out. So I think Hyundai kind of edges people out in terms of that look. I am a huge fan of that look. I know it's not for everyone, but I really like it. It looks modern, and you know, who knows how well this will hold up in the future, but I think you should give it a try before you kind of rule out Hyundai. I feel like a lot of people rule it out just because they've never heard of Hyundai's performance vehicles, but I don't think you should rule them out, because this is a really convincing, compelling car. That's pretty much all I wanted to talk through today, guys. Thank you so much for watching my review of the Elantra N. This has been a dream to drive. I've been trying to track one of these down forever, so I'm so happy I got a chance to drive this in the Seattle area. If you want to check out some of my other videos, you can click up here, subscribe down here, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks, everyone. Bye.